Thank you all for joining the Cataloging Working Group call this February the 19th. And thank you all for having patience to delay it one extra week. Last week was just very busy here, as I assume it was with a lot of people once I got a lot of thank yous for rescheduling from last week. We have a lot to look at, and we're excited to get ramped up for the conference that's coming in just 2 months. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But our primary agenda today is to go over a few updates to the Wiki, some new ways we're sharing information, look at some of the exciting new features that have come out, and then Taryn's going to talk about Bug Squashing Week and how we can get involved. And Jane has identified quite a few bugs that are out there that are ready to be tested when Bug Squashing Week kicks off. So that's nice. We have a focal point when we get started. So if everybody can see the agenda there that I have on my screen, we're just going to work through this. And as usual, these agendas are on the Wiki. I'm starting to add the recordings. I'm working in a reverse chronological order. So our last meeting is up, and the November meeting is up on the Wiki. So we'll have those recordings there by the end of this month. Will be called up, and going forward, the meetings will be up within 2 days after our call, so that we can get those posted for you. But as always, the Wiki Resources, we continue to update as the in between meetings, I should say. So all of our meetings are here. Our links to resources are there, and we'll talk a little about those. And then most importantly, all these current cataloging bugs, we're starting to pull out specific types of bugs to help people look at. If you want to see all of them, but specifically web staff client, those that need discussion, all of this is updated on the Wiki, even in between our meetings. So I want to make sure that we're driving people to that tool pretty regularly. And as I mentioned, the January meeting notes are in place, and just like we're doing now, you'll see that people will be taking notes during this call, and we use the agenda as the official record of the meeting. So we will update that during this call and again at the end of the call to make sure that all of our notes get captured here, and the link will stay on the Wiki, and that's where the recordings will go as well. We wanted to thank Bill again for last month's meeting when he did a demo for us of some of the changes that he's doing. I left the links to these bugs on the agenda this time because he's still working on changes to the staff catalog and some of the import-export functionality as he ports them over. So if you want to take a look at those bugs again, we had a pretty long discussion about those in January, but he's always looking for input from us, and it's much better to do it during the testing phase than to be unhappy or have an opinion afterwards once they go live. Now's the time to check into those, but we're not going to revisit those bugs today. I just wanted to make note that those are still there if anybody wants to look at them. And again, there was quite a bit of conversation during the meeting last time, so you can review that recording and check our notes from the last meeting. Before we hop into bug squashing, I wanted to just point out that there have been 2 releases since we last went through them. Release 3.1.9 and 3.2.3 was just released in January, and the previous 3.18 and 3.2.2 was released, I think, in November prior to that, and we haven't gone through them in any kind of detail in this call. But one of the things we did discuss about in the November meeting was to find a way to synthesize some of these emails that go out in the very long, very good, very thorough release notes. Sometimes it's handy for us just to have a quick look at the summary that's there. And Jane has been responsible for the last 2 release notes that have gone out, and they're great. And what I have done, and as a follow-up to the meeting in November when we said we would like to have the catalogers version of the release notes, and so I put those in a table format, and I hope everybody can see these when I'm there. These are in a PDF format. Actually, let me go back.
Yeah, this was great, Jennifer.
There we go. Is it big enough is what I was trying to make so we can all see it a little bigger there. There you are. And I'm going to make this, because right now I just started it, and obviously it was just a Word table, and then I saved it as a PDF, but I'm going to make it web-friendly and change so that we could actually have comments and that you can do something with it other than print it. But I wanted to just get feedback on the format itself. And my original thought was to keep, like all the 3.1 releases will be together, all the 3.2 releases will be together. And so this first one that we're looking at is just 3.1. And again, they're done in reverse chronological order. Get this out of the way so we can see it over there. Talking about Mm-hmm. There. So that you'll see I just did the categorization that Jane has already started to do in the release notes, which is wonderful. We want to thank her for that. So that there's some general categories, cataloging, circulation, you see what's there. Acquisitions, I didn't have enough room originally, but they'll have their own column because this is, again, just a draft. I would very much like any feedback you can have either now or if you want to take a look at them and send something to the listserv. In fact, I'll put an email to the listserv if we could capture that in the notes and just ask for feedback
like
because it's
format,
You do?
Great. Oh, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you both, Jennifer and Jane.
Mhm. I'm glad to hear that because I know that I have best intentions to read them and to remember what was in release to the release, but my intentions are much grander than my time allows. This, I think, my intention was that it will give us a very quick look at what's there, and especially when a new release comes out to say, okay, how does that build on the release before was my intention. So that's what. And again, we won't go over those there, but this will also help us in our calls. So if we're looking at, for example, if we wanted to look through everything that was on 319, we've pulled out a couple of things to talk about. But we could just use these as the bullet points to go through, and then they just get stored here on the release note. Okay, and then, again,
sorry to interrupt. This is Jane.
Hi, Jane.
I just had two questions really quick. The first one is just for you, Jennifer. So I'm going to be starting work on the release notes for 3.3 probably later this week. I'm wondering, should I just send you an email with all of the cataloging related release entries, and then you can take it from there?
I think what you've been doing is great. I was trying very hard not to add a new step in the process. I want to add to the work. I wanted to make it easier. So I think really after you send them out, it's not going to take me very long to just take what you've done and what you have done for the last two releases and then just transform them into entries on this table.
Okay, sounds good.
I certainly don't want to slow down the release process. So once you have them out there, then I'll pick them up and transform them for our abbreviated version.
This is Tiffany. This might be a question for Jane. I had a thought, and I don't know if anybody thinks separately or differently or whatever, but and I don't know if this would go in the release notes or not, but like having the link to like the LP bug would be really helpful because a lot of times there's a lot of discussion on like what a thing does that's really hard to sum up in like one sentence. So I don't know if that goes in the release notes or if that'd be somewhere else or if that's of interest to anyone else, but I just thought I'd bring it up.
Great suggestion.
Yeah, I like that suggestion a lot. So I guess next time we do a point release, I'll give that a try and send it out and see how people like it.
I'm just capturing that in the release notes. I love that idea.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, Jane. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the suggestion.
And I would follow up that I don't know that I would try to do that in our abbreviated table because it would get even a little more busier than it is now. But having them in the full release notes would be excellent because the table is just supposed to drive you to the release notes if you want to know more, the full release notes. So we've got that on there. And then I'm going to, that's for Jane, capture my notes there. Okay, well then I will release these today or tomorrow to the full listserv for feedback. Okay, fantastic. And again, as you're looking at them, if you can find anything like that you think would be helpful, and I will work on a little better way to make them accessible so it's not just a stationary document like that. Okay. Speaking of, one of the biggest releases one of the most fun parts of the release that we just had in 323 is anytime that we get tabs where we want them. We're very, very excited about that. This bug here, falling down on our agenda here, the bug fixes and new features to celebrate. This is one that Mary asked for. Mary, are you with us? If she's here. She usually joins us. But I think what I was trying to find Mary to talk about this, but Mary suggested this launch bug and sent it out to the listserv, which is, I was using this as an example of how this community can really come together to make things happen. Is she sent this this launchpad note in and then let everybody on the listserv know, because there are just several tabs that weren't opening in new tabs. And anytime it writes over what we're doing, we get very frustrated, or at least I do. Let me read this whole tab there. And so one by one, we started adding heat to it because Mary said, hey, this is a problem. If you like it, please let me know. So we did that. And as you can see, 122, I don't know, do we call these points? I don't know. There were 122 pieces of heat associated with this particular launchpad bug. Now, she looked at it would be helpful when merging bib records if the resulting record displayed in a new tab. Well, of course, that would be helpful. And when importing a bib record with Z3950, it would be helpful if the imported record is displayed on a new tab instead of replacing the one that you're on. When overlaying a bib record, it would be helpful if the overlaid record is automatically in a new tab the way it used to work in the Zool client. So she puts this out there. It's tested. Elaine added some notes. We've got all kinds of notes and some conversations going on there. You see Janet's notes. And I love how there are just a variety of people that contributed to this. And then ultimately, Jane did some testing. Galen and Jason did some changes. There was some more testing. I'm scrolling through this. I hope you can see all the scrolling I'm doing. And it was committed to this last release. So that's one of the things that you'll see in the release notes is now in 3.2.3, we're actually getting these 3 different things that are here in the bug description will now open in new tabs, all because Mary put it on found the issue, created a bug, put it out on the listserv, and said, anybody else interested in this? We said yes. And because I never want to say that this was a simple fix, but it was something that we simply needed to ask about if it was possible to see if it was simple. And all this has happened just in the last 2 months, I guess. It took, essentially the cycle of 1.5 releases to see the change. So I love celebrating this sort of thing, because this is what I think we talked about a few times about, just put it out there if it's something you're excited about, if you just want people to know that you've identified a bug and that if this is affecting you, to please chime in. So thanks to everybody that made that one happen and to give us a very clear, clean way to celebrate little things that we can change. Which I believe that's a very good introduction to Taryn to talk about Bug Squashing Week when we look at fixes and identifying things that are going to make our lives better, happier, and easier. So, Taryn, do you want me to hand over presenter role to you, or do you just want to talk about Bug Squashing Day?
I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let me see. Okay, I requested to share my screen. Mm-hmm. Hi, everybody. Taryn. Okay, let's see here. Okay, can you see my screen? It has the Evergreen Bug Squashing Days. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so first thing that I recommend is that you bookmark this page because it's always impossible to find anything in the So I keep a bookmark so I can find it again easily. So we used to do just individual bug squashing days, but now we actually do bug squashing weeks because we'd find that a single day just wasn't enough time to really dig into projects. If somebody submitted a bug report one day, there wasn't another day where somebody could test it, or if somebody submitted a patch, there wasn't another day where somebody could test the patch and get it approved. So we turned it into a week. You don't have to set aside the entire week, of course. We know that everybody has actual work-related duties. But you can participate as much as you can during the week. It's going to be March 4 through 8. The Launchpad itself, it sounds like most of you probably already have Launchpad accounts, but if you don't, the link to Launchpad is on the page there. And the first thing you would want to do, even if you're just going to be commenting on bugs and not doing anything else, is to go up to the upper right and click on the login/register link and request an account, and that will give you access to be able to comment on all of the bugs. There is a really good little slideshow. There was a good presentation by Mary and Andrea from Equinox last year at the Evergreen Conference and the slideshow kind of walks you through how to use Launchpad. Once you start poking around, it's fairly intuitive. The search isn't the greatest, so we try really hard to tag tickets with different topics. One of the topics that we'd like to look at during Bug Squashing Week is the pull request tag. So everything with the pull request tag means that there's a patch that's been submitted that hasn't been signed off on yet, so it needs to be tested. Now, some of these, you'll see that it's already fixed committed. That means it's going to be in an upcoming release or has already been released recently. So you can sort those by status, and you can look at the new ones. So these are all things that have pull requests that haven't been tested yet. So there's a lot of potential new features that could go into one of the upcoming releases that just need to be tested. Now, when you want to test something, I'll just pick one at random here. Oh, that was one of mine. I didn't do that on purpose, I swear. If you wanted to test something like this, for example, you could just review it. If you want to be the only person that tests it, you can click the little pen edit mark here and assign it to yourself. Sometimes people will test it without assigning to themselves, but if you assign it to yourself, that just means that other people know that you're testing, so that everybody's not testing the same things. But if it's something large where multiple people should be testing, then you don't really need to assign it to yourself. So that's semi-optional. But if you want to have that on a sandbox, just copy that ID for that bug and go over to the sandbox request form, which is also linked on this Bug Squashing Day page down here. Request for a Bug Squashing Day sandbox. Just put in your info, bug number, and the title of the bug. And try to do that, at least a few days, maybe a week before Bug Squashing Day starts. That means Blake, who has volunteered to help us set up sandboxes, will have plenty of time to get that patch applied to a test server and all set up. And then when Bug Squashing Day starts, or when Bug Squashing Week starts, we'll send out the access, logins and everything to the sandboxes. Now, if you don't pick something that you want to apply to a sandbox and test, there are other bugs that don't have that have reported. So if I go back to the main bugs page, you could browse through, you could sort by status if you just want to look at new bugs. So the new bugs are things that have mostly been reported, but nobody's confirmed yet. So if you wanted to look at those, some of those are wish list things. Let's say, okay, so this one looks like it might be an actual bug. So you would review that bug, and then if it is something that affects your library system, you can mark, does this bug affect you? And that will increase the heat on the bug, the little number over here. If you can confirm the bug, then you would change the status to confirmed. And that way, there's at least 2 different library systems that have acknowledged the bug. Or if you can't confirm it, you can put a comment in there. And it's always good for them to put what version of Evergreen you're on when you're commenting. Sometimes somebody will report a bug that's actually a configuration issue, or it's been resolved in a newer version. And so you could add comments, indicating that that might be the case. Or if you can confirm it and you want to add additional information, like, oh, this also happens on this other screen, you can add that in the comments as well. If it doesn't have tags, or it has other things that should be added, like the needs discussion tag that I saw mentioned in the agenda, that could be added under tags as well. And if you have tested something on your sandbox and you want to sign off on it, there are two different ways you can sign off. You can do it through Git, which requires a lot more technical knowledge, or you can just sign off in the comments by copying and pasting this line of text that you see on the screen and pasting it into the comment. And, oops, sorry. Wrong. I didn't copy. But copying and pasting that and just entering your own name and email address in there. And then one of the core committers can add your name, into it properly through Git. So that way you don't have to know how to use Git. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward. I always stay on in the Evergreen IRC channel all day, every day during that week in case people jump in and have questions, or about the process, the bug squashing week. And I'll keep a running tally every day of how many comments and tests and new patches and everything happen. And I'll post that and send out like a midweek update to you so people can keep an eye on how they're doing. And then, kind of make a little challenge for ourselves to always beat what we did last time. So this was the numbers we had for last time. These are all the people that participated in some way. Some of them were actually doing patches or commits, and some of them were doing testing. And it's just kind of a good way for the whole community to pitch in and clean up a lot of stuff that's just been sitting there waiting for somebody to take a look at. Does anybody have any questions?
For people who do not use IRC, could they just email you during the week too if they had questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll put my email. It's probably on the list, but I'll put my email here in the chat box too.
And we'll put a link to the Bug Squashing Day wiki page on the cataloging wiki so that you can get there multiple ways. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for having me. If you have questions later, feel free to email me too.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sharon. We really appreciate your time today and for bug squashing all the time. Thank you.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to press resume and roll back. Okay, and I am back. I want to make sure we grab the notes about putting these on the test. Oops. Wait, did I? Okay. Jane, are you still with us? And are there one or two of these bugs that we want to look at just to give people an example of the kind of fun we can have during Bug Squashing Week, what we might be looking at?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm still here. Would you mind opening up that first one?
Sure. Okay.
So this one, I think, would be a really fun one for somebody to test because, I don't know, I get stressed out during the day, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to just go around deleting things afterwards. So basically, this is a problem with how bib records are deleted. So it would be a fun one to test if you are like me and want to take out your anger on a bunch of bib records on a test server.
Mm-hmm. We get to delete a lot of things. I'm looking at the different scenarios. So there are multiple scenarios that we could test there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
Oh, and would you mind scrolling down just a little bit, Jennifer?
Sure.
So under the tags, you can see that it has the cataloging tag, but it also has that pull request tag that Taryn was talking about. So we know that there's some code ready for a cataloger to test and make sure that it works properly.
No, fantastic. So we could really we can get a link for everything that has a pull request and put that on the cataloging wiki too, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll do that. And so that not everybody has to go in there and sort themselves. We'll just take one step out. I believe we can even pull the list of all the pull requests and then sort them so that we can get to the new ones as well.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Is there another one that we might want to look at? How about this last one, the item status? It says it's really important.
Yeah.
Let's see what this one is. Which, by the way, is also the way I review Launchpad bugs. Anything that says really important, I go, oh, I'll look at that one.
Oh, yeah, this is one where if you're scanning things into item status and you scan 2 copies of the same title into item status, it will only show one of them. So that can be pretty tricky for when you have multiple copies of one title. And so that would be a really good thing to get that tested during this particular bug squashing week, so that fix can be released really soon.
Oh gosh, yes. That would help everybody here that works with high schools. That's fantastic. Okay. Let's see just kind of what the notes are here. Okay, Jason's promised us things. I can see that. But it's ready to be tested. Okay. I think that gives us enough of a example. Is there anything else anybody would want to take a look at while we're all together? There is support for a sweet new link data-related mark field. Let's see what that one does, out of curiosity. Lots of implications for transition to linked data. This is a 758. Anybody here interested in what the 758 is or might have more information than I do about what the 758 does? I'll hop over there. Resource identifier. Oh. Okay. Oh, goodness gracious, look at that. I am just, so we can find, we can link over to Wiki data all over the place. It's just another way to link data. That's very exciting to be able to do that. I always like the ability to do things, whether we use it or not. We're building foundational work. Okay, I'll get out of there. I'll get lost in the mark records today if I'm not careful. Okay. I want to thank Jane for pulling these out because I think sometimes it can just be overwhelming to just start looking at Launchpad and just see this long, long list of things. But exactly what we just did is, I think, genuinely is a good way to just start looking at description and say, I'm going to look at this one, and let's see how this one goes. And Taryn is right there to help if we have any questions about how to test, and she's so easy to work with. So I would encourage everybody to give it a try if you have time during that week. And I do like that we get a week now instead of just one day. So thank you to Taryn. And we're moving quickly today, but I wanted to spend this last little bit to look at the program schedule for the conference. I don't know how many people are planning to be there. Whether you are or not, there's some really interesting things going on. More than ever, I feel like, or at least in the last few years, it's really looking at what catalog our conversations and discussions. So I'm going to open the schedule here. We can get over there to look at it together. I did want to point out one of the first things that I would invite everybody to do is this group will get together, and Elaine Hardy will be leading that, and I'll be helping to facilitate that on Thursday morning at 8 a.m., we will be holding this group will get together for breakfast. And like in years past, we'll talk about what some of the obstacles that are still there for moving forward, some of the big things we would like fixed, some of the small things that we might have had fixed. So it's really more of a discussion without any kind of presentation necessarily. It's more about what the community sees as big issues that we need to address and how we can work together during the year. In fact, reinstating these kind of monthly calls. Let me close out. I definitely need my T-notes there. But reinstating these monthly calls came out of last year's conference, and the year before we talked about getting together more routinely rather than just annually at the conference. So I would say that I would absolutely encourage people to read through these, and even if you're not there, all the presentations from the Evergreen conferences get posted on the conference website, and you can go back and revisit these presentations from years past And prior to this year's conference, I'll make the commitment to go back and pull the last 2 years, anything that's related to cataloging, and get them together with links so that we'll have those resources more readily available. But we can see right from the beginning, Anna from Indiana is going to be doing a little note on how catalogers know how to party. I don't want to miss that. And at the same time, Angela's going to be talking about tags and alerts and notes. And over, we see some really very specific things for catalogers, which I'm so pleased to see. We don't necessarily have that sometimes as catalogers. There'll be sessions, and we'll go, okay, what do I go to this time? It's interesting to see what's going on with circulation and how we can support. It's interesting to see what's going on with developers and how we can be part of the conversation. But it's very interesting when it's something that affects cataloging and the bib records directly, and how we can beef up some of the functionality in WebE. So I would just encourage you to go to the program and check that out, and then keep up. If you're not there, there are updates that come out while we're at the conference. For every time there's a new presentation that's made available, you can see that right away. And as an organizing committee, we'll make sure that we do that throughout the conference too. But if there's anything you're interested in and you're not going to be there, feel free to reach out to. Jane's going to be doing a presentation or two. Rogan's going to be talking about cataloging comics, which is something I think we could talk about every day and come up with a different answer. So that's always fun. And you can, like I said, I won't keep going through here. I just wanted to let everybody know that the program has been posted. Pennsylvania is hosting it, of course. It'll be in Valley Forge. And make sure that if you have ideas and you are going to be there for topics to discuss during the cataloging working group, or the cataloging interest group, as they're calling it, meeting on that Thursday morning, or if you want to be involved, please let me know. And one of the last things here is we talked about pulling out some of these launch bugs to look at. We specifically want to focus before our next meeting. The bug squashing week will have happened, so we're going to look at those that need testing. But we've started using a new tag called Needs Discussion. So that's one that we talked about in this group a few months ago, and that we're encouraging developers and people that create these tags to say, if this is something we just need to talk about as a community, not necessarily just catalogers, but as a community that they need input, I think this is one that we want to make sure that we come back to, and that if you've got 10 or 15 minutes and you don't want to spend time deleting things like Jane likes to do, you just want to do a little light reading, this would be a great place to start. And really all it needs is just your input. You don't have to test. You don't have to see if it necessarily affects you right now. It's more about, this accommodating standing orders, is this something that's important to you? And I think this is more of an acquisitions issue there. But you can see that this is a very manageable list to review. And it is one that, when the needs discussion tag is on there, it's one that genuinely wants the community to get involved. Because without a discussion, people are just praying for what they think we need, without us telling anybody what we want. This is a great way to do that. I also want to repeat what I said earlier. If you want a bug to get a little more attention, one of the quickest things for me to do is if somebody puts something out on the listserv and says, I just posted this, it's something I'd like to see fixed, do you agree? And all we have to do is, just like Taryn demonstrated, all you have to do is click on this affects me too, and it adds heat, and it takes less than 10 seconds to do that. So I would encourage all of us to support one another when we put messages like that out on the listserv, so that we can, without a lot of effort, say, this is something I'm paying attention to, and this is something that affects me too. And it is how bugs can get prioritized in some very real ways, as we saw just with the bugs about making sure that new windows open instead of overlaying, what we did there. Actually, the end of the agenda. I can open it up to see, because we normally go for an hour, but I didn't want to fill it just to have more time. I like to be very mindful of other people's time. But if anybody has any questions or things they would like to talk about next month, we'll look a little more at what's coming up at the conference in April. We'll also look backwards to the presentations that were available at the previous two conferences. We'll have those available to review next month. Is there anything anybody would like to add to next month's agenda, or add to items that they want us to work on between now and March? Okay. Let that go now. So then we'll just get out early today. And I want to once again encourage everybody to spend a little bit of time looking at bug testing and see how you can get involved and reach out to Taryn or to any of us. I also wanted to make one additional suggestion is if you can see at the very top of this agenda here, the organizing committee members are listed. And that just means we're the ones that came together after the last conference and said we'd like to keep this going. That doesn't mean it's a closed group by any means. If this is helping put these monthly calls together, if you just want to say you have some ideas and you want to be involved, it doesn't mean that you cannot be a member. This isn't a closed session. So if it's you want to give a little more time to the organizing committee, just let me know or anybody on there. The wiki itself has all of our email addresses on there. So if you want to get to any of us, do that. And again, it's not exclusive. It's just anybody that wants to help certainly can. And we use the cataloging listserv to communicate. And just noticed I would check the chat box before I go. Taryn said she's going to go ahead and request a sandbox for those cataloging bugs that Jane identified. So all of those will be ready for us to test. So that's one step you don't have to do. You can just say, well, I want one of the ones that Jane identified, and you can start testing. So thanks, Taryn, for that. Let me go back 2 minutes here. Oops. And I get back in here. And I'm going to check the chat box one more time. I did notice in the recordings that our chats do not get recorded, so I'm going to do a better job before I close out of capturing those in text so that we can share those. And I apologize for that in the recording. So sometimes you'll say yes, and I'll be responding to something that's in the chat box, and you can't see the chat box. I'll fix that after this call. Okay, that's it for me, unless anybody has anything else for the good of the order. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
I appreciate it. Thanks to Taryn and Jane for preparing and helping out today. Excellent stuff.
Thank
I can't
you.
wait for Bug Squashing Week to get here. Thank you.